Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to this installment of my 2020 tarot deck collection, well, tarot and oracle deck collection and declutter series. Again, no idea how much decluttering I will be doing. Probably not very much, if any. But welcome! I'm going to be sharing with you today my dark and shadowy decks. So these are decks, I think these are my dark and shadowy decks. These are going to be the decks that I tend to reach for when I'm doing shadow work. I tend to reach for these decks around the darker half of the year, so around like Halloween time, around Samhain time, and generally when we start getting into that season, this is the stuff I tend to reach for. So I have more that I could possibly go through during that season, which is one motivator for potentially doing some decluttering here. Let's see where I end up. So we're going to start out by diving into the Heal Yourself reading cards. Now, I've talked about this deck before on my channel. It is a deck that I've used a lot for shadow work specifically. This one is by Inna Segal, and it is a Rockpool publishing deck. It comes in this really nice box, and it has a really lovely, well done guidebook with big color images. One of the things I particularly enjoy about this deck is that for every card you have a description of what it's talking about, why, like it really does have sort of a shadow work or shadowy kind of theme to it, and it always gives you like an action step, so something to do, a task or something to work on or be aware of or practice, and I really like those sort of tangible action steps about this deck. Now I will say that this artwork is, oh, tipping over my little planty dude. This artwork is not necessarily my favorite. It's beautifully done, and the cards themselves are really nice quality. I love this sort of sigil on the back. They're glossy, they're big, the artwork is vivid, but I do find it to be a little bit sort of like video gamey. Like, I don't know how else to say it, but the women tend to be very young and voluptuous and like romance novel cover kind of look. And that's not necessarily my very favorite for a whole lot of reasons, which is a bit of a rabbit hole I'm going to not take you down this video. But suffice to say, I wasn't gravitating towards this deck for the artwork. I just really love the specific set of keywords that are here and the way that this deck challenges. This one's a little out of place, not gonna lie. This whole Dreams card, it doesn't seem to fit with the rest of it. But everything else in here seems to really challenge some self-work. That being said, having worked with this deck for, oh gosh, I think I worked with this deck for almost a year. That might be too much. I don't know if I worked with it for that long. I have, since I got this deck, stumbled on other decks that work really well for me for shadow work, and I just don't know if I really want to keep this in my collection, given how the artwork does tend to just get on my nerves at times. Again, beautifully done. It's just so like body beautiful, and I don't know. I think this is one I might consider letting go, even though I've done a lot of good work with this deck. This is the trouble. But I find that because I have other decks now that are helpful for shadow work, this is just one that I tend to not be as inclined to work with, particularly since I have other decks that still help me to do the work, and I don't have to work with this particular kind of artwork. So I think this one, I'm gonna put this in my to be considered to rehome pile, but there's a lot of substance to it. It's just that I think I find the artwork distracting. Again, it's beautifully created artwork, it's talented artwork, it's just a little too fantasy video game style for me, weirdly, which, I mean, I love me some video games, don't get me wrong, but I'm gonna put that in my to be considered to be rehome pile. Next, let's talk about, this is my probably number one, no, I think it is my number one shadow work deck, and that is the Bohemian, excuse me, the Deviant Moon Tarot Borderless Edition. This is such a stunning deck. I've talked about this a bunch on my channel, and I think the reason this deck caught my attention in such a major way is because I was so vehemently opposed to ever having this deck in my collection. I had no interest whatsoever. I thought it was creepy. I thought it was dark. I thought it was unnecessarily scary and dark. And one day I just decided to give it a chance. And I don't know why. I don't know what possessed me, but I purchased it, got it into my hands, and it swept me away. There's something about this artwork that just helps me to do shadow work and helps me to really see the shadow side of the different cards. It has its own sort of dark world, And the artwork, even though it's creepy, it's really hard to describe. But when you get it in your hands and you get it in front of you, you recognize the depth and the richness and the quality of the artwork, which is something I don't think video or photographs help you to do. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just really a really cool deck with a lot of substance. And someday I'm going to spring for the gigantic coffee table book that you can buy for this deck. It's just pricey, and I just, for some reason, I haven't been able to get off the fence, and I've literally been talking about getting that book for like over a year. I've bought so many things. I could have totally bought it since then. I do need to edge this deck at some point, but this is probably my favorite to work with during the Halloween season for doing shadow work, for really looking within. I really love it, and I think it's just a beautifully created deck, and it has so much to it. And this little white book actually has a good amount of support for like the shadow work meanings of the cards, or the more shadowy meanings of the cards. But really beautiful. I love it. I love that it's got this special sort of lace, black lace outside bag. It just suits it so well. So I really like that one. That one will not leave my collection for sure. Another number one favorite, or number one-ish, I guess they can't all be number one. Well, a favorite for the Halloween season is my Zombie Tarot. This deck, it's mass market. And again, Deviant Moon is still available mass market. I believe Heal Yourself Reading Cards is as well. The Zombie Tarot comes in a really cool box. This is one of my favorite edging jobs I've done also, by the way. I edged it in like a red, and then I went over it with like a distress ink to kind of make it look dingier. It's hard to describe, but it's like red dingy. I'm not a huge fan of the backs, and the cardstock feels kind of like cardboardy, but it's held up surprisingly well considering it feels a little bit stiff, but it seems to not like crease on me. It's a little stiff and thick and hard to shuffle, but I manage okay. The thing about this deck is, again, nothing that was my style. I think I bought this from somebody in my neighborhood, like used. Oh, it's not focusing. Hello, camera. Do your job. There we go. That's better. Let's bring these back. But this is the sassiest, kind of funniest deck, and it reads so well. Like this freaking Six of Swords, where they're literally on a boat and they're shooting the zombies that are trying to climb back in. There's so much depth to reading with that card. I have a hard time reading with this deck outside of the Halloween season because it just feels so thematically appropriate for that time of year, but it really is an excellent reader. And I would not have in a million years thought that this deck would have felt that way to me. It's got this really retro, like 1950s kind of housewife vibe to it, but it's, oh my gosh, it's so great. And somebody on one of my videos talking about this deck recommended the movie Fido. And I swear to God, that movie, Fido, and this deck could have been created by the same person. So if you love the feel of this deck, or if you love the movie Fido, then yeah, same vibe. Same vibe. Just funny and like playful, but sassy, lots of attitude, and a lot of fun layers to meanings of the cards. It's really great. I really love it. And if I had to pick like my favorite sort of Halloween themed deck, this one would win. The guidebook even has tons of sass. It's set up in this retro way to literally look like old newspaper ads from back then. Look at this. Look at the retro ads in the back even. Like, and the way that it's written is comedic and light and yet still meaningful. So good. I did keep the thematic box that it comes with, but once Peggy made me a Zombie Tarot pinup bag for it, it was so perfect. So I love this deck. I absolutely love this deck, and it's definitely not one that I would rehome. Next up, let's talk about the Dark Mansion Tarot. Okay, so I bought this deck twice because I bought it when it was the first edition. I bought the large-sized version because when this deck first came out, the only way to get the brown backing, so there's different backing options. These backings were only available on the larger size. There was also a limited edition version that had like a fancy box. I didn't bother with that one. I love this clamshell style of box. When it came out in a second edition, you had the option to get the second edition in a normal, like a standard size, which is still a little bigger than standard, but barely. with a rose petal finish and your choice of backs. So you could get this backing with gold gilding, or you could get a really pretty blue and black cloudy kind of backing with a black edging. And both are beautiful. I haven't worked with this one since I bought the smaller size, but I have to say it is so much more, like, it's so much easier to handle at this size. I'm so glad. I ended up selling my first edition and keeping this one. I love the finish on the cards. This deck is such a fun one to read with. It's very Rider-Waite-Smith clone in a way. It really, while it does depict the cards in its own art style, it definitely holds on to classic Rider-Waite-Smith scenes, so it's very easy to read. There's no guidebook, there's no little white book, and I think that's because when they designed this deck, they really did design it with the classic sort of imagery in mind. Again, some changes, but I love this devil card. It's a really beautiful deck. It's very kind of Tim Burton comic booky kind of feel, very Victorian, and I like working with this in the darker half of the year. It's kind of got a bit of that haunted house sort of feel, or, you know, it feels like thematic for that time of year for sure. But I haven't worked with it in a while, and I just think it's just because I've had so many other things coming into my collection, but I really do enjoy this deck. I just haven't been, oops. When I purchased the new second edition, I believe it was after the Halloween season last year, and I just haven't pulled it back out. And because this is more of a dark half of the year deck for me, it just hasn't gotten a lot of play lately. But I couldn't see myself rehoming it. I think it's just too well done and too special. Plus it has its own embroidered bag, which this design actually for this embroidery came about because somebody in the community thought of having this kind of style done, and thank you, you know who you are, because it came out really good. Once Peggy had done the test embroidery, I asked her, and then did the custom order, I asked her to make me one too, but it just came out so good. Okay, what's up next? So another Oracle deck. This is the Halloween Oracle, and I don't have the book handy. I believe this is another Stacey DeMarco Oracle. I love the backings. This is such a great Oracle for Halloween time. It's so thematically appropriate, and this pairs really well with my other Halloweenish kind of themed decks. It's a digital art style, and all of the items or objects, I guess, that the cards are based on are all thematically appropriate for the Halloween season. It is kind of gimmicky in the sense that it's really geared around Halloween, but the actual keywords are definitely useful for any kind of reading, like authenticity, the most magical hour of all, strength, love is love is love, and it transcends physical death, happiness in our hearts and homes, and that kind of thing. So I think it's got a lot to it. It is kitschy, but I do use it, and I think I purchased it last Halloween, and I ended up using it for half of October because it just worked so well with the other decks that I was working with at that time of year. But it's really beautiful. This is a trimmed copy, so the original version has black borders, I believe, all the way around. And so I trimmed mine and I edged it in orange and black, so it's very Halloween. And the backings are great because when you trim them, of course, because it's just a repeating design, it doesn't even look like a trimmed deck. So love this one. Really enjoy working with them at that time of year. And I love my sort of skull bag that goes with it. So that's not going anywhere. We're not making much progress again. Okay, well, we'll see where we end up. Next, another Halloween themed deck is my Halloween Tarot in a tin. Okay, this deck is real cute. It's real cute. The cards, 2 of Imps, 4 of Ghosts. I mean, it is legit like a Halloween themed tarot deck. It was a lot of fun to use last Halloween season. Not gonna lie, really enjoyed it. And this one paired with the Halloween Oracle obviously works really, really well. I have no complaints. It was inexpensive. I don't know that I would spring for the full-size version with the full-size book, even though I've heard that book is incredible. Because frankly, I just can't bring myself to use a deck like this the rest of the year because, I mean, maybe I'm being rigid, but it's called the Halloween Tarot, so I pretty much just want to work with it around Halloween. There is a sweet little black cat in every single image, which I think is a super fun thing. I kind of like do the where's the cat in the image with this deck. It's a lot of fun to do, but this is just a great little deck. The quality's good. It's a US Games, I think. Yeah, it's a US Games. It shuffles really well. It's got that good, like, classic US Games style cardstock, And this was just really fun to use last Halloween. So I will definitely enjoy using this in October. And October is one of those months where even if I have new decks that I haven't worked with yet, I will always prioritize my sort of Halloween themed or sort of dark and shadowy themed decks for sure. So next up, I have my newest addition to this category, which is the Shadowland Tarot by Monica Bodersky. And this deck, it's so well thought out. The artwork is very sort of creepy cute. It's dark and shadowy. The way that the cards are depicted definitely does show you the shadow meanings of the cards. If you're looking for it, you can really see it. Some of the cards occasionally don't quite like scratch the itch for me for showing me the shadow, but like 99% of them do. And I really actually enjoy this deck quite a bit. This art style, I didn't know if I was going to jive with it because it does feel very like, I don't know how to describe it. But I like my cute decks, and this kind of gives me a creepy cute element, and I really enjoy that. She literally reminds me of the girl from It, and not It, but The Ring. I don't know why. So there's a lot of like shadow in this deck. It's got a kind of a really strange aesthetic to it, but the guidebook is really, really well done and definitely gives you an opportunity to dive into shadow work, which is something I really enjoy. I think I might actually work with this deck specifically for shadow work. I have a practice where once a month I'll pull a card to represent the shadows that I need to work on or the shadow work that I need to address. And I think this deck would work really well in that capacity. I also think it would work great around the Halloween time because, I mean, look at it. I mean, yeah. It does come gilded. I'm not a fan of this cardstock. It's really stiff and hard to shuffle. Like, it hurts my hands to shuffle, and I like shuffling. So that was a disappointment. I filed off the gilding very gently with a nail file. I didn't get it all. I left a lot behind, actually. You can see it peeking through. And then I edged it in black. I kind of like that weird mottled effect that I got by doing that. I thought that filing off the gilding would make it more comfortable to shuffle, but to be honest, it really didn't make that big of a difference, but it does aesthetically look a lot cooler, I think, with the black than with the gold. It's a really neat deck. I wish it was a different kind of cardstock. I think it would change my experience with it quite a bit, but it is what it is, and I think it's a really well done deck. Again, it's one I don't think I would want to rehome because I really do love doing shadow work. I really, really do. And this is one of those that helps facilitate that process. And I think it's decks like this coming into my collection that are going to make it easier for me to rehome this deck. We'll see, but I'm pretty sure that one's going to go. So let's take a look. I've got two more left. So this one is a Baba Studios deck, and this is the Bohemian Gothic Tarot. This is now out of print. This was my first Baba Studios deck. There's an alternate Lovers card. This is I think the original one that came with the deck, but then they offered a different one. Comes with a little white book. I've also since purchased, they had a small reprint run of the full-size guidebook for this deck, and so I purchased that, kind of hoping it would help me bond more with the actual stories and the cards. I have had some really fun readings with this deck, and I do think it's really beautiful. I would say of all my Baba Studios decks, not that I have a bazillion of them, but I do have a few of them, this would be the one, this is one of the ones I would consider rehoming. It doesn't have that sort of metallic foiling, cold foil stamping that Baba Studios decks are known for. At least this edition doesn't have it. But the artwork is so vivid and so stunning. I don't find it to be the best reader necessarily. I think that a lot of the cards depict the meanings really in a really neat way, but then a lot of them feel like misses to me. And I still can find it, but I've been reading for a long time. This is definitely not a deck that I would recommend to beginners because I feel like it can be a bit of a stretch at first to figure out what the cards are trying to tell you. The fuller sized guidebook just didn't give me as much new information. It's jam-packed of information. It just didn't seem to get me over the hump. So this is actually a deck I think I would consider rehoming, in spite of how like just dark and kind of gothic and beautiful it is. I think honestly that I don't know that I'd be fully excited to dive back into it this Halloween season. And that might be all I need to know. Now, if you don't know, Baba Studios decks are created with a really beautiful thin cardstock, but a cardstock that has a really nice core. So it shuffles just beautifully. Mine has an ever so slight ever so slight bow to it, but it doesn't affect its ability to shuffle. It shuffles really, really nicely. I haven't modified it. I don't think I've modified any of my Baba Studios decks. But I think I might be ready to let this one go. I would be probably letting it go with its guidebook. I think I'm going to put it in the to consider pile while I look at our last deck, and then I'll circle back. Okay. The last deck I have is one that I had in my trade pile for a while and then pulled back out, and I can't decide how I feel. So this is the Raven's Prophecy Tarot. My copy is trimmed, but I hate the way the backs look trimmed. Like, really hate. I feel like if I was going to, like, that really bugs me. I edged it in orange, but the fronts had these orange borders all the way around, and I didn't like that either. This was in my to be rehomed pile for a long, long time, and the main reason I never ended up rehoming it is because I then read the novels, the Raven's Prophecy, I guess it's called the Raven Cycle series, I think is what it's called, and I loved those books so much that I pulled this deck back out of the to be traded pile, thinking that I would work with them for a week again and see where I ended up. I still haven't worked with them again since then, and I still ultimately don't think this deck is for me, even though I loved the books so much. These cards don't speak directly to the books as much as I thought they would. Like, you can definitely see the books in this deck, but it's a subtle association as opposed to a really obvious association, and so I can't like lean into the story to help me bond with the deck, if that makes any sense. And so it's just back to looking at it at face value. Like, do I really think this is a deck that I'm going to be excited to pull out for any reason? And I think the answer is no. I think this does need to go back into my to be rehomed pile. So I think that's what's gonna, yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So it's really beautiful. It's got this like minimalist kind of feel, and there's a lot of potency in it if you really know what you're looking for, but it's kind of pippish to me, and I have pip decks that I really like better, so I think it is time to let this one go. So let's take a look. I think I'm definitely keeping these decks. So my Shadowland Tarot, my Halloween Oracle, my Dark Mansion Tarot, my Halloween Tarot in a tin, my Zombie Tarot, and my Deviant Moon Borderless. These all are staying for sure. Oops. I just tossed them behind me. And I think I am going to rehome my Raven's Prophecy. I think I am going to rehome my Bohemian Gothic and my Heal Yourself reading cards. So actually, I did way better this video than I thought I was going to do, because I didn't think I was going to be able to let 3 decks like that go. So I don't know if I mentioned it in this video. I know I've mentioned it in previous videos, but for any decks that I'm thinking of rehoming, I will sit on them for a little while. I don't like to be hasty with my trades because sometimes I'll regret them. So I'm going to think about it for a bit, put them in a pile, see if I miss them. And if I don't, I'll either in the future make a decks leaving my collection video and make them available that way, or I will start adding them to my trade list in the Supportive Tarot Facebook group, where we do have a Tarot Trade Tuesday post that goes up every week, so that people can rehome, share, sell, trade decks there. So they may show up over there. If you're not a member, go ahead and request to join and keep an eye out for that. If you don't have Facebook or don't want to do it, that's totally cool. I will still probably also make a video in the future of any decks that I haven't managed to find homes for, so some may end up still showing up on here somewhere. I haven't really decided, but just so you know, there'll be a chance in the future. I just don't want to do it right this second because I want to make sure I've really thought about it and that I'm really truly ready. So thank you so much for hanging out with this edition of my 2020 Tarot Collection Declutter series. I will see you guys in the next video. Remember to like, share, subscribe, do all the good things, and if you would like to book a reading with me, you can do that over at supportivetarot.com. Thanks guys, bye!